blown way out of proportion. Somebody asked me the state of rock and roll, and I said, well, it's splintered, it's all over the place, you know. And I mentioned that the Lumineers and Mumford & Son were not rock and roll. I didn't mean it as an insult, I thought everybody knew that, you know. The same way you would say Beyonce is not rock and roll, or this guy, you know, rock and roll is Guns N' Roses, and that's rock and roll. But they took it, I guess, as an insult.
Oh no.
And so they fired back when I crossed my bow, something about I'm not touched with them. Okay. And then I said, okay, just for that, I'm going to play a folk festival. And it was great, the audience was great. They were not a folk festival at the end of the festival.
So one of the things I always love is the way that you often spoke about yourself. Alice Cooper is a different person. You're not Alice Cooper, it's a different guy. Was it always that way, or was there a point in your career that Alice Cooper kind of became separate from yourself?
There was a real gray area, really gray area, early on in my career. I realized that I created a character that was going to be really hard to live up to all the time. And you have to remember now, my big brothers and my big sisters at that point were Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, and all those guys. They were my drinking buddies, but I was the little kid. I was sort of a mascot. I was just starting up. And I realized that every one of those guys that died at 27 died because they couldn't live up to the character. They tried living up to that character, and it just killed them. And so I said, well, for my generation, we're going to have to figure out where to separate. I'll play Alice Cooper at night, but I don't want to have to get up in the morning and put on makeup because it's going to be way too hard to really fulfill that character. The more intense he gets, I found that the more Alice got more intense, the further I got away from him. So it was fun to look forward to play. It still is. I can't wait to play Alice at night because I'm nothing like him.
You know, speaking of like the character, you've often said that, you know, you looked out there at the rock and roll bands, you saw a lot of pure paints, and you can see Captain Bucks.
Right.
Is it still, is that sort of still what you want to be in music today? Are you still kind of that villain, that Captain Hook?
I now, rock and roll needs villains. I mean, you know, you have all the good feeling rock and roll and everything's wonderful and everything like that. And my show, even my show, it's a party, it's a Halloween party. But I still think you need that dark character to make it all work. You know, Marilyn is that dark character. Rob Zombie is that dark character, you know. There's a lot of villains out there now. But at the time, the darkest character would have been Jim Morrison. And he was more of a poet laureate. He wasn't really a scary guy. I thought that rock and roll needed a Moriarty. Rock and roll needed somebody that was really unpredictably scary on stage. But you have to have the music to back it. You can't just, you're a puppet show if you don't have songs to back it up.
There was a few different kind of scary, dark characters in music that came before you. And you mentioned some of your influences are like the Yardbirds, that kind of thing. What about like Screaming Jay Hawkins and Screaming Lord Sutch? Did that have an influence on the Alice character?
See, I'd never heard of Screaming Lord Sutch. When I went to England the first time, everybody was talking about Screaming Lord Sutch, and in the States, nobody had ever heard of him.
Right.
You know, I mean, he was like a pure English thing. The closest thing to Alice Cooper was Arthur Brown.
Yeah.
Arthur and I got to be really good friends. In fact, 2 Halloweens ago, we had him come up and fire.
No way.
It was great. I mean, he was just as good as the other ones. I'm just insane. He's this repeat king thing. He's like 90 now or something. But his voice is just as big as it ever has been. And Screaming Jay Hawkins was not, I was not into blues at all, so I didn't really know who he was, to be honest with you. I was pretty much thought that Alice was the first pure rock and roll villain. And I always look at Alice even now as, if Alice isn't my favorite rock star, there's something wrong. So I designed him to be my favorite rock star. If I was in the audience, what do I want to see him do? Okay, so I did.
There's so many different stories about the early days of the Alice Cooper band, and one that doesn't get mentioned as much is, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, the Galicia estate in Connecticut. Yeah. And so it's this huge mansion where you recorded some famous albums, and I heard it was really creepy and kind of cool. Could you talk a little bit about what it was like to live there and record?
Well, we finally could afford a place where we could all live in one house. It was, I think, 30 rooms, 35 rooms. if he had to drive, it was like the Hill House, you know. You had to drive like 10 minutes down the thing to get to the house, and it had like statues that were all falling apart and everything, and it was just perfect for us. And our next door neighbor was Benny Davis, who was much scarier than any of us. And I even told her, I said, you know, part of the Alice makeup was from Baby Jane. The idea of her being this old woman with this pasty makeup and cracking kind of, and her trying to be a little girl was really disturbing. I said, so I used some of that as part of Alice Cooper. That and the Black Queen in Barbarella. The first time I saw the switchblades come out of the wrist, I went, oh yeah, no, that's me right there. And you combine that with Baby Jane, and it's pretty twisted.
You know, I think to this day, like, if you were to just ask someone out on the street, where did Alice Cooper come up with his name from? They'd probably mention the story about the Ouija board. Is that something that you made up, or where did that story originally come from?
I wish that was a true story. There are so many great stories about how we got the name, and mine is the most boring. I thought, what name would piss off every parent in America? If you look like us, and you're going to do what we're going to do. I tried to come up with the nicest little old lady name I could think of. Some old lady on your block that would make cookies for all the kids, you know. And I went, Alice Cooper would be a good name. And that was the first name I thought of. And then we went through 100 different names and it kept coming back to that name. And then I started thinking, Alice Cooper, Baby Jane, Lizzie Borden. It had a ring to it that had a rhythm to it. And it stuck, it just stuck. But I mean, I could have said Mary Thompson, I could have said anything, but Alice Cooper seemed like that little old lady that probably has bodies buried in the basement.